As we wrap up discussion of two views of this particular phrase in Matthew 28:19, I say that not only is one view incorrect, but it actually, ironically, constitutes the greatest distraction from the true Great Commission. And hence I call the incorrect view the Great Distraction. How so? If you're taking on the task of discipling all kingdoms of the earth with a view towards social transformation, you are taking on something that I say not only Jesus did not command, Jesus himself he didn't demonstrate it to his disciples. He didn't show them the way. He didn't accomplish it himself. He didn't see Jesus was rejected by the majority of his own ethnoi, his own nation, his own people did not receive him, except for the minority, the representative, true children of promise, the offspring by faith. He didn't transform the Roman Empire. He didn't transform Judea. He didn't transform Jerusalem. He didn't transform the ethnic Israel nation. He had an impact. He witnessed. He warned them. But the true transformation happened at the level of his disciples, his followers. And so to take on the task of transforming kingdoms from the top down, society as a whole constituted of mostly unregenerate rebels against the King of the universe, is a gargantuan task. It's an impossible task. It is the task of shepherding goats, or as people say nowadays, herding cats. I remember a board game we played in my youth. It was called The Game of Life, and you would spin a wheel and go some spaces and land on a spot, and it would have some real life type of scenario where you made money or lost money or whatnot. And so, well, there was one where you had a relative who died and left you an inheritance, and you're thinking, I'm going to get money on this spot. Well, it turns out he left you a skunk farm, and you have to pay money to get this skunk farm taken off of your hands. It's a liability, not an asset. It's a burden, not a blessing. So when you land on that spot and you inherit a skunk farm, you actually have to pay money when you land on that spot. I think the folks who have taken on the task of discipling the unregenerate kingdoms of the world have taken on a task that is more of a burden than a blessing. You know, Doug Wilson in the video that we watched, he himself, he said the Great Commission means disciple Canada, and then he corrected himself and he said, actually, which means make Canada Christian. And then he said, well, actually, if you know your history, make Canada Christian again, because Canada was a Christian country and then it unchristianized. We can, of course, say the same thing about Europe. We can say the same thing about Anatolia. I mean, for 1,000 years, Byzantium kingdom was, this was the center of Christian orthodoxy in here. And then this little tribe from Eastern Asia of Turks came across the Central Asian plains and ended up taking over to where now Anatolia is less than 0.1% Christian. So Christianizing countries, Christianizing societies is an unstable task. It comes and it goes. It's a big, heavy. It's like a skunk farm. Once even if you succeed, then now you have this massive, expensive undertaking to support and to keep it running. It's a gargantuan task, which is why in the same Doug Wilson who talked about Christianizing Canada said in a recent CNN interview when he was talking about how he wants to Christianize America, and it's not going as well as he would like at the moment, but he has a hopeful, expectations and the promises of God that it's going to come to pass. And So he threw out a number. The interviewer said, "What kind of timeline are you looking at?" And he said, 200 years. Maybe we'll see America Christianized as it should be. Likewise, James Jordan, another postmillennialist, in his Revelation commentary, he says, I have a long tail vision for human history, and he's got to see. I mean, when you see that the Byzantium Empire was Christianized for 1,000 years and then fall into shambles, it's gonna take a while to implement the post-millennial vision. If you got to get all the way here of purpleizing the world, that's a big task. So Jordan throws out a figure of 20,000 years. Now he's not trying to prophesy, neither he nor Doug Wilson is saying they know the number, but just throwing out a figure to show the scale that they're talking about. James Jordan is looking at 20,000 years to see the world Christianized, to see the post-millennial vision come to pass. Whereas I say that the task of discipling the nations, discipling the through their representative, through the brothers, through the offspring of promise, discipling the 12 apostles rather than all the 12 tribes in the flesh, that this task could be fulfilled if the church was operating at all cylinders of the Spirit. This task could be accomplished in 7 years. As long as we're throwing out rough estimate figures, I'm not looking at 20,000 years or 200 years. I'm looking at 7 years that the task, the Great Commission, could be fulfilled, and Jesus returns. May it be so. This is a much more doable task than this is. And we see in the book of Acts, we'll go there shortly in our videos. We see the apostles establishing the kingdom of God through its representatives in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. But there's dots. There's dots in Galatia and Cappadocia and Thessalonica and Rome and Ephesus. There's a dot of Thomas, as church history says, going off to India. Not all of India was Christianized, but there's a dot. There's the Ethiopian eunuch bringing a dot down to Ethiopia. A very doable task. And I say that possibly the greatest distraction against the Great Commission is the great distraction of trying to disciple the kingdoms, trying to Christianize society. And so when we get later on to Revelation, this is the great distraction is part of the false prophecy. The false prophet has brought a false narrative, a false mission to the church, which is in fact not only failing to fulfill the Great Commission, but all of the investment that goes into sustaining Christian nations and trying to further purify nations that already have dots all over them is that this is the false prophet's great success in distracting the church from the Great Commission. And so I say, beware of the great distraction.